Yeah, I think I wasn't in. I think I was with. Was I with Bill Matthews, and I think God rest his soul, Mick O'Toole. I think I was in the same class as them up in the. I can't quite remember now. But yeah, it took. I when I joined, I had to go as a porter. For those people who don't know, it's just back in the day you were collecting tickets on the suburban trains and tickets at the gate. So I did that first, and what I ended up doing is, because I finished my exams really quickly, I had no idea what I was talking about. I just had a good memory, right? And when I finished, so they gave me a job in the institute. So I was there printing out papers. So I actually never got out in the trains for probably, man, it must have been 6-7 months, and then only spent a few months on the trains, and then transferred to a small town, Tailem Bend, which was a loco depot. But prior to that, I was at Dynam, which is that photo beside me, and they never had us cleaning engines. Like they weren't particularly good. They were pretty dirty and greasy inside. So what we did is did our school safe working rule, and you were encouraged to do your air brake exam, and once you did that, then you were able to drive under instruction from drivers. So I spent 12 months there and then went to Adelaide. So, hey, Mick, when, and I'll ask you both this, but when did your passion for the railways, I'm going to hang in here, like when did suddenly that little... I actually like this job,
Yeah, no, as soon as I actually went into even cleaning the engines, I thought to myself that I enjoyed it. That was a bit of a dirty job, but I liked it when we actually, once you got your safe working rules and that completed and passed, you could actually go into the shunt link, and you had to do I think you had to do 500 hours, if that sounds right. Before you were even allowed to go out on the main line, you had to do so many hours on the shunt link before you were allowed to go out on the main line. Is that right, Paul?
That's as a fireman. That's right, Mick. Yes.
Yeah. To get out as a fireman on the main line, but I enjoyed driving even the shunt engines, because they don't do those sort of things these days, but we used to be kicking off wagons, and everything was freewheeling when they shunted. Now these days they shunt wagon yards with air, but back in the day they used to sort of get rid of the air and just kick wagons off. And they had a movement called fly shunt, I think it was.
Oh, right, yeah.
They actually used to pull the wagons. The shunter would stand on the step, he'd lift the pin, you'd scoot ahead with your loco, and there'd be another shunter on the ground throwing the points over behind you, so that the rest of the train that was going into the yard would go down.
They used to do that in Melbourne as well. Like it used to be like, I never saw an accident, but boy, it was one waiting to happen.
Oh, you could see it, yeah. And these days, obviously, safety procedures and regulations have totally changed. You're not allowed to jump on and off trains and things like that.
Yeah. It was quite a hierarchical system back then, where as a young fireman, I can remember when I started, there were lots of drivers and firemen who'd come from Europe after the war, much like my father-in-law, who came from Austria. He only stayed for a couple of years in the railways, which was the obligation back then. But those drivers, English wasn't their second language, and they'd barely talk to you, and most of them wouldn't know your name. So you weren't treated respectfully, if I can use that term, like you would be today. But in order to earn a promotion, someone either had to die or they moved to the country, or someone from the country depot, like Tailem Bend, for example, moved on or passed away or whatever it might be. And then there was a gap in that list of, priority list, if you will. And I can remember when I moved to the railcar depot, let's say I was number, 470 in the fireman's list, and not even on the driver's list. I remember I jumped 93 other guys to become a rated locomotive driver, albeit in the railcar depot. 93 I jumped. Well, I'd still be waiting now for those 93 guys to either pass away or move on. if the system didn't change. But now it's much different. The training is so much different.